I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Army of Thieves. And it's definitely the prequel to Army of the Dead. I did that review a while ago too. It's 2 hours and 9 minutes. Spoiler alert, let's just get it. So if you remember Army of the Dead, you remember this guy by the name of Sebastian. He was the locksmith in that movie. He's doing a YouTube video about this guy named Hans Wagner. Now back in the day, he made 4 different types of safes that are literally impossible to crack by anybody. For some reason, Hans thought it was time to need his end, so he locks himself in the 4th safe. And he ended up dying in there because nobody could crack it or force it open. It's basically his tomb as they dropped it into the ocean. So he gave the history of Hans, basically did his YouTube video, now he's ready to go to work. His job, he actually works as a bank teller. He gets his coffee at this one spot every day. He gets random ass customers yelling at him. Meanwhile, he's looking at the news, he sees this zombie apocalypse happening in Las Vegas. So that right there lets you know it's a prequel to Army of the Dead. If you've seen the movie and you've seen my review on it. So later on as he's getting off work, he checks his YouTube spot. And some anonymous person actually sent him a comment. This anonymous person asks him if you want to put your skills to the test, and he gives him a time and place to be at, and also a password to get in. So he hops on the train, heads over to his spot in Berlin, gives the doorman the password, and after fucking with him for about 15 seconds, he does let him in. So as he's walking him in, he puts him right in the middle of a contest, where it's about 8 people, including himself, already lined up to crack some safes. The first 4 to crack open the safe with a certain time advances. He didn't even start when everybody else did, but he still managed to be one of the 4. And of course you got people placing bets and all this other stuff. Now you got 4 people left cracking safes, and the first 2 advance to the last level. Bottom line, it ends up being Sebastian and this random guy. Once again, Sebastian just takes his time, and then he declared the winner. He gets pissed off, he's a spoil sport. He tried to attack Sebastian, but then the security guard came out of nowhere and was like, nah, we ain't having that shit. As everything's all good and gravy, Sebastian notices somebody in the crowd. This lady by the name of Gwen. He doesn't know yet, but her backstory is when she was 6 years old, she was stealing watches. When she was 16, her boyfriend broke up with her, so she ended up stealing his car. When she was 17, she actually robbed her first bank. So bottom line, the years that she was a teenager, she's been wanted by Interpol. But right at the time, Sebastian didn't know this yet. So he goes back to his apartment, he's like, oh, okay, that was fun. And then we see him looking at pictures of his parents and pictures of their urns. Apparently, they must have died between that time. They don't really tell us how his parents died or what happened. We could assume it was natural causes, a car crash, maybe the apocalypse or something. Maybe his parents was in Vegas, who knows? Bottom line, I'm just assuming things, they don't tell us. So he goes back to work like everything's all normal and everything. But when he stops in his normal coffee spot, Gwen is actually there to meet up with him. So apparently Sebastian did one-on-one video because Gwen has seen all of them. She's basically been stalking him. But the reason for that is because she needs Sebastian to join her team. They're going to crack the 3 safes of Hans Wagner, my bad. But the 3 safes he invented years ago. They all have different names for him, but if you combine them, they call them the ring circle. Probably because of the way the safes were invented. I mean, yeah, of course they could get some of the money out of there, but it's more about the adventure and the thrill for her. He's always wanted to crack the safes too, so he's kind of intrigued. So she gives him an address to meet at, and she's like, alright, just take a day to think about it. So later on he goes back on to watch TV, and he keeps seeing stuff on the news about the zombie apocalypse stuff that's happening in Las Vegas again. Then he hears somebody near the door, so he goes over towards it, looks down the hallway, and he sees his little kid. So he opens up the door, and this kid's just standing there in the hallway, like, that don't look good at all, right? He gets closer, all of a sudden this kid puts his hands up and attacks, like, oh shit! And a bunch of these motherfuckers start coming! But yeah, he was just dreaming and starts spazzing out on the couch. So he wakes up the next day, goes over to this location. There's a location to meet up with Gwen. And after that, she introduces him to the team. Karina is a specialist at computers, tracking signals, hacking, all that good stuff. And over here we have Rolf, he's the getaway driver. And then we have this guy who calls himself Brad Cage. His real name is Alexis, but the reason why he calls himself Brad Cage, he was always picked on as a kid and he wants to be an action hero. And his favorite people are Brad Pitt and Nicolas Cage, so he put the names together, Brad Cage. No, seriously, he used to watch Nicolas Cage work out in that movie Con Air. He had that complex like, yeah, I'm becoming a man one day, yeah, I'm gonna be fire. What does he do for the team? He's basically like the muscle. He's willing to get down and dirty, I guess. And that's basically the team. You got a driver, you got the muscle, you got the computer expert, you got Gwen who maps out all the plans, and you have Sebastian, the safe cracker. So they're gonna try to do these safes one by one, going to the easiest one first, which they're all pretty difficult, honestly. 2 of the safes are held in banks and one's held in a casino. Now who's the sponsor for all these? Tanaka. Remember him from Army of the Dead? Yeah, he's a fucking billionaire. So now they're ready to get on with the first mission. He's getting nervous, but yeah, they go for the mission. He goes in, pretends like he's using the bathroom. Gwen goes in like she needs a security deposit box. Karina acts like she's French and she needs a bank teller. Somehow Gwen and Sebastian sneak down to the bottom of the floor so they get to the safe. Now it's a delicate safe because this one has 3 different combination locks. And basically if he fucks up twice, it automatically locks forever completely. But Sebastian knows what he's doing. He's getting down to business. He plays some box music and he's ready to go. So after telling Gwen about life stories about how this safe was easily made, he finally cracks it open and gets it popping. There's a ridiculous amount of money in there, but the point is just to be able to get it open. They can just get a certain amount and dip out. In other words, everybody pretends to be back in their original spots and they walk out the bank with the cheese or the cash. Now we got this cop named Della that's supposed to be on to them somewhat. Now he's got a hard on for looking for these criminals, but it's more personal to him. Mainly because he encountered Brad before and he got shot in his ass. Well, not really, it hit a flask that he had in his back pocket. He thinks this is the perfect time for them to get away with it because he thinks everybody's consumed about this zombie apocalypse thing, and they'd be too distracted about anybody robbing banks. But I think he knows a little bit of the back history of the hand swagger stuff in the ring circle too. He seems to think he knows which bank they're going to strike next. Meanwhile, everybody's celebrating playing ping pong, or beer pong, whatever you want to call it. And it seems like Brad and Gwen have some type of thing going somewhat. Karina tries to get a pop with Sebastian, but he ain't going for it. So she gives him some advice. She's like, look, man, the situation with Gwen's kind of complicated, but you know, I'm right here if you need me. Later on, Gwen's back in the room going over the plans for the next heist. Sebastian pops in, they get to talking. Then he starts talking about his childhood. He never really had friends like that, so he practiced on his skills and his craft about cracking safes. And he was actually trying to make a little comic book out of it. So Gwen delves into her past. She always talks about the thrill of stealing. She talks about how her parents were rich, but that was only because her dad used to steal from the government. So technically it's traditional, it was raised in the family, I guess. She said she met Brad at like a frat party or something like that, and apparently they always been close for a while. Meanwhile, Brad's downstairs getting jealous of Sebastian for like no reason. So Gwen and Sebastian do stealing for the thrill of it, and they get a little bit of money out of it too, but Brad was only doing it for the money. Then she tells about the safe that they always wanted to crack together. A safe that just happens to be in Las Vegas. Yeah, she actually had plans for the safe, the Guggenheimer. And if you remember in Army of the Dead, that's the casino that was surrounded by fucking multiple different type of zombies. Special zombies, super zombies, all that shit. So if you didn't know it was a prequel by now, there you go. So now they're ready to get to their second bank. But Della and the boys are ready for them. They prepared, or so they think. So they get him into the bank. He's got this like phony key card, but Karina's got access to the bank. So she's basically hacking the doors to be open, but it's looking like Sebastian's opening it himself. He goes down this different hallway, where he eventually meets up with Gwen on the elevator. Unfortunately, there's two guards down there covering the bank. The safe, I mean. They basically got to improvise, and Gwen goes down there whipping candy ass. She locks them both up by the gates, and now it's time to get to work. Again, this one has 3 different combinations. Now he's ready to get it popping. But he almost fucks up and one of the locks goes in. So he needs some supreme concentration. Meanwhile, something's wrong with the cameras. The cop said, man, he had enough. I'm going in. They hear over the intercom, Brad's like, yo, we got to implement plan B. But when the cops get to the spot, they realize they're at the wrong damn bank. Brad goes in there, acts like he's robbing the place, basically to stall for time, while Glenn and Sebastian unlock the safe so they can get the money. After some supreme concentration, he finally opens it up, and that's the second one unlocked. They're gonna cheese all the cash. Meanwhile, Brad's about to get it popping with this one cop. When he's escaping, he ends up getting shot in the shoulder. Nevertheless, he does make it to the van. Gwen and Sebastian make it out the bank. They try to hurry up because the van is moving. He gets Gwen on board. When he pulls at Sebastian, he's just holding him there for a minute. Then he tosses him off the van. Basically, to fend for himself. Brad, you ain't shit. Brad, you're really jealous because you know what I'm saying, just trying to take your girl, that's what you think? Nevertheless, Brad tells Rolf to keep going, keep driving. So now Sebastian got to fend for himself and get the fuck out of there. He steals a bike and gets ghost, and then hops on a moving train and escapes. Meanwhile, it's beef in the van, especially between Brad and Gwen. Now they said originally the plan was to ditch Sebastian, but we weren't gonna let him take the fall for the cops. But Brad didn't give a fuck, he was hating because of the connection he was having with Gwen. But Gwen's like, really, don't you think we need Sebastian for the third job? But Brad didn't give a fuck about that, he's like, man, we got enough money. Then Gwen says, fuck you, I'm hopping out the van, and that's exactly what she does. Karina hopped out the van too, but she was actually smart. She actually brought a bag of money with her along with her laptop. Out in the middle of nowhere when they did this shit, but yeah. Now Sebastian get back to his house pissed off at everything, as he should be. But when he gets home, he doesn't even realize that Karina and Gwen are just sitting in there chilling. Now they basically need him for the last caper, but he's thinking to himself, why the fuck would I help y'all at this point? Y'all niggas ditch me. She apologizes, but she explains to him that was all Brad and Rolf. They say, look, at the end of the day, we left them niggas too. So after some heavy tension and really not that much trust, he does decide that, all right, we're gonna do this third caper. So now they gotta figure out a plan. Meanwhile, Detective Della looks up Sebastian videos. I don't know how he found them. He realizes that was the same guy that was in the bank robbery. Now the reason he didn't notice already was because a while ago they had caught the other safe cracker that they used to have before they hired Sebastian. So at that point, they didn't know they had a new guy. But somehow he did know about the ring circle and Hans Wagner. Okay, sure, let's roll with that. Then we come back to Sebastian having this dream about opening his safe while zombies are chasing after him. He tries to lock himself in the safe. Then another one grabbed him from behind and all of a sudden he woke up. Gwen make sure he's good and it's like, all right, let's get down to business. So the third safe is in the Block Casino. You know, the last two safes were in banks. So once again, the police think they ready for this shit. They think they all that information. They think they good. So they ready to bust in like, fuck this shit. We got these niggas. So they bust in. They talk to the manager of the casino. So the thing is, they're trying to make sure everything's on point. But the manager said, we already got a call from the department like an hour and a half ago making sure everything was good. So apparently the people told her they was like the safe is en route. But he's like, nobody from our department called y'all. And now he's got to be thinking to himself, who the fuck called him? So we go back to hours ago. Corinne was speaking in French, and she actually hacked the system and tried to be LAPD. And she was the one that actually told the casino about the coordinates. And that's who she was talking to when she thought she was talking to LAPD. So when the real two guys was actually transporting the safe, Gwen intercepted them and gave them the business, laid them out on the side of the road and took the truck. So now the police at that time thought they were listening to everything in the conversation. They thought they heard the exact time and location when they was talking. But this is what really happened. Corinne was able to sneak up on a sniper cop, take his earpiece, and transfer it to the police frequency to make them hear what she wanted them to hear. Meanwhile, everybody was transporting the safe, and now Sebastian and Gwen are riding around with the safe driving in it. It's crazy. And this one has 7 different combinations. So he's gonna try to crack the hardest safe yet while they're driving in the back of the fucking van. Keep in mind, he needs total and absolute concentration to do this shit. Once again, if he fucks up, it locks forever. So basically, at this point, she's trying to drive as slow as possible. Now back in real time, the police are trying to figure out everything. They're baffled. They're getting pissed off. Then we find out Brad and Rolf are actually at the casino too, trying to figure out what's going on. He wants to get the money too, but apparently he wants his girl back, I guess. He ends up turning on a tracker on his phone so he could be able to find Sebastian and him. Karina was going over to try to intercept him because she saw him, but they end up getting away. And then the cops stop her, but before that, she gives a message to Gwen telling them to run. She kicks the phone over, making sure it gets smashed under a car before they can touch it. No evidence for you, mister. Then the female cop tries to get a calm tactic, asks her where her partners are. Then she basically bribes her to get a lesser jail sentence so she can make sure that her brother's good. Man, wait, we didn't even know she had a brother. Meanwhile, Brad and Rolf are chasing after Gwen and Sebastian. She knows they're getting chased, so now she's got to speed up. Sebastian falling all over the place, but eventually she gets niggas to slip, and Sebastian ends up cracking the last safe. They pull over on the side of the road, they get some of the cash out, put it in bags, and then come these niggas pulling out ready to shoot. But apparently she was already prepared for this because he pulls out his lucky gun all the time. The thing is, she had already took out the trigger pin for the shit. So basically, he can't shoot nothing. And she pulls out her gun like, hey, get your bitch asses over there. So basically, they steal Brad's car. They handcuff them niggas to the truck. The boys come through, catch them niggas. They end up heading over to this dock by the boats. You get your feel-good moment with the kiss between Gwen and Sebastian. They get to the boat, but the detective Dela finds them. She's trying to strike up a deal with the detective. She said, look, you can have a bag of money. Leave Sebastian out of this. So the thing is, the entire time, he's been chasing after Brad and Gwen. So both of them have been notorious criminals and whatnot. But since he's got most of them, he's willing to let Sebastian go. He doesn't want to leave Gwen, but he ain't got no choice. So he gets to the boat with the money and gets the fuck out of there. And Gwen ends up getting arrested. On the boat, he searches through the bag and sees 3 different types of passports. One for Karina, one for Gwen, and one for Sebastian. And of course, they all got different names, and they also got tickets on there. I don't know if they're plane tickets or train tickets, but they're actually tickets to Las Vegas, so he can crack open the Guttenheimer. The last scene, we come to the spot where it was the scene from Army from the Dead, with Batista and his girl going to meet up with Sebastian, who was chilling in the locksmith spot. He was actually genuinely surprised when Batista pulled out a blueprint of the Guttenheimer. And that's where he started explaining his love for it, and you know he wants to crack that safe. And if you've seen Army of the Dead, you know where it goes from there. Army of Thieves on Netflix. Check it out. Like, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is. These are the easy bits. Big. You got a slogan.